¿Cómo están, amigos? Estamos con Michelle Gielan. Es un caso muy especial porque you used to be in media.
Yes, I was a national anchor with CBS News in the United States, anchoring 2 programs, and I basically got tired of telling negative news stories. And more importantly, though, what I wanted to understand is how can we talk about negative events in our world, but in a way that leaves us feeling empowered and ready to take that first step towards positive change. We had it on our program, this idea called Happy Week, where we invited experts in to talk about, in the midst of the recession, how can you take back control of your happiness?
I was never invited.
I wish I'd known about you. I would have had you as our first guest. And we got such an incredible viewer response that it showed me the appetite and the hunger for not just sort of feel-good happyology, but really the science behind it and then what we can do with it. So now I have a master's in positive psychology from Penn, and I do research about exactly how you can shift your mindset in a way that fuels your performance, fuels your happiness, and it makes other people happy as well.
What was your eureka moment? Was the click? Like, no, this is not for me. Because I figure it's a very seductive job, the one you had, media, exposure, etc., etc.
Yeah,
lots of free lunches.
Lots of free lunches, but don't tell anyone that. My friends thought I was insane when I decided I was going to leave the position. It was a slow process that built over time, but one of the turning points for me was seeing, I covered a funeral of a little girl who had been shot at her own birthday party. And what I saw there was the first night that we covered the story, we sort of did the murder, the sadness, the tragedy about this horrible neighborhood. And, we brought out all the worst. When I sat in the pew of that church and I watched this funeral unfold in front of me, and specifically these women, these other mothers from the neighborhood surrounding the mother who had just lost her daughter and loving her and supporting her, I saw there was another story in that moment that we could also talk about. And one leaves us paralyzed in fear, worrying that this could happen to us, and one leaves us rallied to take action. And so I want to tell those other stories so people have the hope that at the lowest point in their lives, they can come back up.
So now you have written a book?
Yeah.
Or 2? How many?
1. It's called Broadcasting Happiness, the merging of both worlds.
How
Convenient.
Convenient.
Yes, yeah, I know.
So what's next for you? What's your next project?
Oh, the best project right now, honestly, is I have a 3-year-old son, and he's wonderful. But just to continue to deepen the research that we're doing, in particular, I'm looking at the effect of news media on the brain. 3 minutes of negative news first thing in the morning can lead to a 27% higher likelihood of you reporting a bad day, as reported 6 to 8 hours later. So how do we flip the story? How do we tell those other stories? And when we start talking about solutions-focused stories, still focusing on the problem, but talking about what we can do about it, you feel better, creative problem solving, significantly improved. So working with journalists about how they can, the mechanics of telling stories differently.
According to your research, why bad news have more impact on humans than good news?
So this is really interesting. We might initially pay attention to the bad news because we want to make sure everything's okay, right? It's a survival instinct. But when it comes to what we are going to share with other people, the likelihood that we'll share that negative information, unless it's obviously something very significant that we need to know about, most people are significantly more likely to share positive, meaningful information than they are the negative information. When you're on social media, when you're talking to your friends, if you know of a positive story, you're actually more likely to talk about it. So while we might think that negative news sells, it doesn't have the legs that positive, helpful information does.
Okay, great. Any last words you would like to give to our Latin American audience?
Well, I love you for what you're doing because you're highlighting all this research that's coming out of positive psychology and how we can use it. So you're broadcasting happiness, which I'm so grateful for. So thank you.
Gracias y regresamos con ustedes.